Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's My Community Manager. It's Friday, TGIF. So glad it's Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the CMGR Hangout. This is My Community Manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. I am Dom, co-producer here, along with Sherry and Brew. And as always, hello to Twitter, everybody that's over there. Carrie and Sarah are holding it down on the Twitter side, hashtag CMGR Hangout. So thanks a lot, guys. We have a absolutely fantastic panel. I'm really excited. We're still continuing with this topic of different CMAD awards. And today we are actually on the topic of the traffic controller, getting people to the right spot. I'm really excited. We have a absolutely baller panel who not only pretty much came together on such short notice because things got bottlenecked, at least on our side when we were getting stuff around for this. So they're awesome for that. They're also awesome for the knowledge bombs they're going to drop. So let's let them introduce themselves, and we will actually start with Tommy. So Tommy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, most commonly known as Sasha Varel in the Minecraft community. I am, the real name, of course, is Tommy Carpenter. I am the community manager of the official Minecraft forum. I work for Curse, and I've been doing it for about 3.5 years now. That's about the gist of it.
Awesome.
I love that huge mic in your face.
Sorry, it's a fixture in here.
I'm Tia. I work for Unbounce. I am currently the social strategist. I've done different kinds of community management and social media for all sorts of nonprofits, and I've been at Unbounce for about 1.5 years now.
Awesome. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Hawke. I recently started as head of community at Feverbee. Before that, I was at SitePoint, which was a much larger tech community. So now I manage a community, which is just amazing. Lots of very different issues, but enjoyable. So yeah, that's quite new for me. I've been in community for about 10 years now, in some role or other, and yeah, I think I'll be here for at least another 10.
My turn. Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Miller. I am Chief Listener at Pipeliner CRM, where I lead all of the social strategy, as well as Excellence Officer at Broadsuite Media Group.
Hey everyone, I'm David Dewald, Community Manager at Thunderhead.com, seeking new opportunities starting April 1st.
And that's not a joke, right? April Fool's joke there.
No, but it was funny that your last day is April 1st. We're not kidding. So.
Yeah. My last day was April 3rd once, so we were joking around that on the 1st they would be like, just kidding, actually you can stay.
It's great. I love the company. I enjoyed my time there. We built a great community, and fortunately it's going to keep going on without me. We've got a lot of good people that are going to be taking over.
Cool. I am Sherry Ruddy. I lead community and user experience at Rebellion Media, as well as produce CMGR Hangout here with Dom and Brew, who's stuck in a meeting.
Awesome. And like I said, my name is Dom, co-producer here with Sherry and Brew, as well as communications manager for millennialceo.com, as well as working with Be the Change Revolutions. So let's jump right in. Fantastic panel, all about traffic controllers. I love this topic because stuff like this has happened to all of us. I have an example of, like, you walk into a big store, it's absolutely massive. You're looking for one thing specifically. You can't find exactly where it is. When you do find somebody that you think might work there, they point you in a direction, and then you wait in line to find out you have to wait in a different line. There's just a lot of confusion. Everybody's bumping into each other. You're just hoping that there's somebody to help guide you through the chaos. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about today. This panel, we have some nominees, great traffic controllers for the awards that we had this past year. and we're going to talk about how to really stop those roadblocks, stop those things that get people frustrated when they're lost and confused. And so I'll throw the first question out to you guys. What do you think, like in your head when you're picturing it, what does a smooth community really look like?
I'll start if you like. To me, a smooth community looks like nothing, and that's kind of the point. Things are running smoothly, there's nobody stuck anywhere, there aren't people introducing posts with sorry if this is in the wrong place, there aren't support tickets, people are just in there and they're doing their thing. It looks like nothing. I'm done.
I would agree with her. I think that if you don't see a lot of bad activity, you want to see activity, but if you don't see anything negative going on, I think that that's a good sign that things are running really smooth. I mean, you want some stuff going on. If it was running with no complaints, I'd start to worry. But I think she's right. If it's smooth waters, you can tell because there's not a lot of negativity going on.
Yeah, I think defining smooth is different for each community. All communities are very different, and as long as the goals are being met, your unique timed resolution, and your community is happy, I think what David just mentioned, the sentiment is key. So if everything's happy and folks are generally helping out each other, I think is another good sign. So you're kind of crowdsourcing the flow. I think that's a good sign the community is working.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, we will jump into question 2 here, and just a quick shout out to everybody on Twitter. I know we have a lot of people that are really talking over there. If you guys do have any questions or anything like that as it comes up, I think this is a really good one to actually get some good, quick feedback from what you guys want to know from this panel. So make sure to just, send it off to Sherry or myself or my CMGR if you do have any questions for the panel. But here's another question I think a lot of people are going to agree with. What are some of the benefits of a free-flowing, smooth community where there are no roadblocks? I know it might seem obvious, but what do you guys think some of the major benefits you get from that?
I think one of the really awesome things about a community who is doing well is they'll kind of help guide you in a way by providing their feedback. The conversations that they're having can really kind of help you move forward when you're planning your strategy. So you're not so much worried about like all the little day-to-day things and keeping an eye on everyone, but you can really kind of like look towards the future and some other opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, and I think that one of the really key things is that people come in confident. They come in and they get stuck straight into your community. They feel the courage to ask the questions that they're there to ask, rather than that holy hell, where am I? How am I going to figure out where I'm supposed to post this? Who do I ask for help? People just don't feel like they've come in and started a really good experience, and I think that that's fairly key to any good community, just getting off on the right foot.
Communities, I think, like any group of people, any large group of people especially, tend to form a sort of mob mentality, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on exactly what they're mobbing about. If they're generally in good spirits about, in this case, a service or a product that you're offering, and they kind of give themselves direction. If you're leading them, give them a little nudge in this direction, say, hey, go look at, say these videos or look at this service we're offering, and let them kind of take over and lead themselves from there going forward. They don't feel like they're being pulled by the nose, but at the same time, you're kind of pointing them exactly where you want them to go. And I think with that, the real advantage, in this case with a free-flowing community, is you've got this group of people that feel free. They feel like they've got this choice, to do what they want with what you're providing, even though ultimately, mechanically, you're the one leading them along. It's just not nearly as obvious that way.
That's a really good point. Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
benefit for me, I think, is that when things are flowing well, you're proud of your community. You feel good about getting people on board. You feel good about advertising. You feel good about talking about it. Having a platform that is intuitive and that is easy to use makes us proud. And I think that's a very, very important part of any job.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, here's a good one. I really do like this question. I'm super stoked to hear what you guys are going to say about this. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are? Like, I know we can think pretty big picture stuff, or you can get into some finer details of your own communities, but what are some of the biggest challenges when creating a solid flow? Like making sure that there are no roadblocks. Not necessarily cleaning them up, but in the creating the community before that, what are some of your biggest challenges to make sure that happens?
I think the biggest challenge is kind of finding that platform that works for your community. Sometimes, no matter how much research you're doing, all the ideas that you have, like all the planning you do ahead of time, sometimes you just don't quite know what you're going to get. Like you have all these high hopes and you launch into a community and then maybe it's not the right platform for your community after all. So I think like just kind of overcoming the tool like choice paralysis out there is a little bit tough sometimes, making that final decision and just like finally acting on something.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think that it's one thing to have a great platform, but it's also another thing to really carefully plan and design and be prepared to pivot if something isn't working. So being able to act on feedback really quickly. If the same feedback keeps coming through, then obviously something needs to change. And I think that having your staff on board or having the courage yourself to go, hey, you're right, actually, I can't keep telling people that they're doing it wrong. I have to make a change here, even if it's a tiny change, sometimes a huge change, sometimes a platform migration. I think that having the courage to pivot when something's not working is something that we're so often afraid of change, and I think that we kind of try and mold our community to fit into something that we've created because that feels like a much easier option than actually making a change. So I think, yeah, having the courage to pivot is key.
You know, I was going to say, I think in early communities, you really have to try everything. You know, you can't be afraid of failing or not getting the results that you want. So, you know, when you're trying to grow it in the beginning, when you don't have a lot, just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Because you don't know. Sometimes it's going to be that one oddball idea that really resonates and really promotes your community. And I wonder, you know, just asking the rest of the panelists, have you ever considered using gamification? Not that I'm a fan of that word, but I'm a fan of the concept, to kind of guide your community into the flow that you want them to use.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to look at. I was actually at a meetup the other day, and this is a little bit different, but it's still a community. It's our internal employee engagement kind of thing. We're looking at ways to get people more motivated within the company to be active on social, like sharing our culture, that kind of thing. And I had never really thought about doing incentives before because we were just kind of like asking and expecting them to participate. But that is a program that I'm going to look at building right now. I think it's like you said, like incentivizing. So maybe whoever posts the most in a month might get a reward or something like that. I think it helps. Yeah.
It can. I think you need to be careful that you're not getting people to participate for the perks rather than, you know, you want quality over quantity. Is that what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the concept is great if you use it to build a strong and healthy culture as opposed to just using it to, as you say, incentivize. Like it's really about creating a pattern. And I think the other important thing about gamification is having an exit plan as well. You don't want things to go on forever, so trialing small periods of certain things is a great idea until the pattern starts to evolve. But I think to get stuck in a rut where people start to do things just for the results or for the prize can end up being detrimental to your culture.
That's awesome. And I actually, before we hop into the next question, I want to bring in a question from Patrick. Um, let's see here. Patrick says a little bit of a devil's advocate question, and this is going to be interesting. All right, is there any times when a roadblock is a good thing? I know we haven't necessarily defined what roadblock is, so if you want to do that in a way, you can. But do you guys think there's ever a time when a roadblock is a good thing in a community?
I'll jump in. I think, in my view, I think roadblocks and negative feedback are always a good thing because they clearly highlight an issue in the community that you can address. I think when people just go along and it's, there's an undercurrent of dissent, but no one's actually shouting out, I think that's worse. So I think if there's a roadblock that a lot of people are shouting out, or it's just clear internally through the flow, I think it's fantastic because you can fix it and make the community stronger.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that just even in terms of your own personal growth and your own professional growth and your own careful analysis of your community and giving you the opportunity or being forced to spend some time thinking about best practices or how something might work better is never a bad thing. I think occasionally we need things thrown in our paths so that we stay on top of our game.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'd have to
Go
agree with
ahead,
the
Tommy.
roadblock analysis. Sorry. I think especially with CMs, one of the biggest things we have to face is we are kind of by definition trailblazers. What we do is we are going into places, especially if it's with a company that doesn't do it normally, or even if it's with a company you do it normally, but a product you're not familiar with just yet. You're going into brand new territory, untouched ground, and the roadblocks you can encounter along the way are really, really important for the development and creative process. Without them, there's nothing to test your theories. There's nothing to test your ideas. And, as you hit them and either, stumble over them or overcome them, that is, over time, what defines, where your community goes and where your strategy goes from there.
Awesome. Well, I do want to sort of take this second here as we're really getting into this word roadblock. What do you guys think are some examples of roadblocks that maybe you've experienced in your communities or just overall that you've seen? What are some actual physical examples of roadblock?
Unintuitive navigation. So when you're constantly getting somebody coming in and saying, I don't know if this is the right place to post, or when you're getting people tacking on welcome threads onto the end of other people's welcome threads. You clearly don't have an obvious welcome category. So yeah, I think unintuitive navigation is something that I see relatively frequently, just people not knowing where to post.
I was going to say, in my case, I had a situation where we had developed a community and was just about ready to launch, and then hire from the C-level, someone came in and said, we don't want to do it this way. We want to divide the community in half between our users. We have two different user types. We're going to split them so that one community can see everything, or one half of the community can see everything, and the other half can only see a small portion. And when you're that close to launching, and then you've suddenly got to take everything that you've done and split it down the middle, and find the logical places where content can be best used by everybody. It certainly can throw a wrench in what your plans were. That for me was a roadblock. We were able to get past it, and it worked really well. So. But it's not my first choice. I would rather have everybody all together all the time.
I think one common one for us has been just having the right amount of staff to take care of it. Time zones. For example, when issues come up and it's the middle of the night where most of our staff is, that's kind of where we rely on the rest of the community to hopefully step in, and they have in the past. Obviously, it's not every time, so we have done a few things like hiring on the East Coast or hiring one in Europe, but obviously it's a slow process. You can't really force until the actual need is there.
I think another issue can be a roadblock that's not necessarily a public whole community roadblock, but if you've got one moderator or one staff member that isn't on the same page as the others, So you've got one person that's sort of moderating to a different set of rules, and that can create all sorts of issues, both from a community being confused perspective, why don't these rules apply to everybody, or why does this person have a different set of guidelines, and it also throws your staff out, and it creates some internal confusion and roadblocks there in terms of, especially if you've got a volunteer staff. How do you deal with a volunteer moderator that's not towing the line, so to speak? Different rules apply when you're not actually paying somebody. So yeah, that's a different kind of behind the scenes roadblock that occasionally can happen.
I know you mentioned navigation, Sarah, but we had too recently a form for users to submit to share their story, and we're getting a lot of messages about not being able to figure out basically why the button wouldn't work, because they had to accept the terms and conditions and they couldn't figure out how to expand it or check it or whatnot. And we're like, wow, like if there's so many people that are taking the time to find the contact form to say, I can't figure this out, like how many other people are just not getting through this section because they can't figure it out? So a lot of times those little user experience improvements make a huge difference as well.
Were you going to say something, Rachel? You seem like you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that most of my roadblocks have been on the kind of support side of the house for community, where people are asking the same question, and maybe in the first thread it was responded to timely, but they're not finding that initial thread. So they're asking the question again, and then they look like they're unresolved. So it's been a lot of cleanup work for our moderators, going in and trying to group all the threads together. And I think that was primarily a tool issue. It wasn't terribly intuitive, but that's primarily what I've seen. The most public roadblocks that we've had to deal with.
Awesome. Good stuff. We're having a nice little conversation over on the side. So, oh, there you go. Sherry's being awesome and putting the questions in there next. I think we sort of answered question 4 with that. I mean, if you guys have anything else, I'll pose it, but I think we did a pretty good job just right then of what causes, actually we answered it, yeah, what causes frequent roadblocks in your community. So we'll throw a wrench in everybody's Twitter questions. I'll prove that I'm not as good as moderating as Brew is, and we'll skip right to question 5. How do you guys handle bottlenecks, like everything going through you or everything going through one person? I know that when you really feel, I've had this before, you really feel like you know your community, but then you have something that happens and you've got a whole backlog of stuff you need to get to. How do you really make sure that it continues to flow when you're the one that knows best what to do, I guess?
I find that throwing a temper tantrum makes me feel better. I don't know. I think that community managers as a whole, just in doing our business, we tend to become very patient people. I think that we also become very good problem solvers, and with any roadblock, patience and time and thought will get you through it. But my perspective is a little different. Maybe I know that everything's a matter of time and money, and when you don't have money, you have to spend the time. But you just got to muddle through. Look for help if you can. If your community can help, ask them to help. If you can go up the chain of command in your company and get some help, that whatever you need to do to figure out how to either work around the roadblock or remove the roadblock.
Yeah, I think asking for help is key. It's often hard to see the problem when you're in it, or the bottleneck. So I think where you pull your community or ask for assistance from other members of your team, sometimes they'll see something really quickly that you're just overseeing because you're kind of panicking or just stressed about the situation. So definitely ask for help. It's a show of strength, not a weakness.
But I think the flip side to that, from my perspective anyway, is that what we're not particularly good at often is delegating. And when you spend so much time creating and building this thing, you become very passionate about it, and you also become quite proprietary often. And I think that having the courage to delegate and having somebody close enough to you that understands things as well as you do, that you feel like you can trust to delegate, is often a key as well. So I've found in the past occasionally I force myself to take a day off and just not answer anything, not do anything, and just see how other people cope. And that's often a really good way of figuring out where the gaps in your organisation or your staff are. So yeah, I think we need to learn to delegate some more, back off sometimes.
When it comes to that, I know that you sort of, Rachel, you sort of mentioned like pooling the community and other people. Let's say that you don't necessarily have the resources. You don't necessarily have, let's say, somebody on staff that, you know, it's their job. What do you really find the best way to sort of get the community to sort of help along with that? Like, say, tapping into some people there to be able to help direct. Like, how have you guys really had a lot of you know, a lot of time doing that, and what do you think the best way to really be able to have the community help you is?
I think the success of all of the communities that I've helped manage has been identifying advocates and really leveraging them. I'm a big believer in crowdsourcing almost everything, whether it's service, support, beta groups for feedback, you know, directly on product. So yeah, I think identifying advocates and nurturing them and empowering them to kind of be your voice when you're not there, or just amplifying your voice, is incredibly powerful and a great way to avoid roadblocks, and if they do occur, can help you get through them.
And these days, I think, and people probably get sick of hearing me say it, tools. So Discourse is just a brilliant tool for helping to empower your community, and I think we'll see more and more platforms that offer tools so that people do start to take some responsibility for what they see and for what they want to see. So yeah, it can be a tool-based thing as well.
Tommy, I'd be really interested to get your take on this. I know that you guys have a pretty big community there. How do you guys really handle, like, when it comes to issues? Is there a lot of community involvement along with that, or is it basically you?
that really depends on the issue. MCF has a really peculiar setup. We've got I only deal with content and direct community engagement when it comes to content in the game itself. There's another gentleman on our team, Sam, who deals primarily with moderating the site and the community as far as rule enforcement is concerned. And then he's got a team of volunteers, which, you know, as she mentioned earlier, crowdsourcing essentially works out really well. But for me personally, handling content is kind of an interesting challenge because I am the sole point of contact for a lot of, like, say, the big YouTubers or the modders or Mojang themselves. And I'd like to say that's hard, but I've been micromanaging for so long at this point, I don't know any other way to do it. I'd like to say it's overwhelming, but I think I'd be bored doing anything else, to be honest. Frankly, it keeps me stimulated, if I'm being honest. I get up every day knowing there's going to be some new thing to head on, and it's something that makes you excited to get up and jump right into work every day, and it's not something I've ever had in any other job I've ever done. So I don't know. I don't really look at it as a downside or an obstacle to be, you know, defeated and then forgotten about and move on. It's more like, all right, you know, what is going to be in front of me today, and, you know, we're gonna take it down and go right through it and just have another successful, you know, train of accomplishments there. I don't even know how else to put it. Dealing with content creators too is kind of an interesting challenge because every one of them doesn't exactly need me as much as maybe I need them, and I don't know that they all know that, if I'm being honest. But they are, like with Minecraft specifically, if you're familiar with it, basically the majority of the game's lifeblood right now is, you know, the community's involvement. Everything that makes this game go forward and has made it go forward for the last 3 or 4 years has been community involvement. So they are so important to be involved with. It's important to make them stay excited about it. It's important to keep them on a constant kind of roll, you know, with this game and with all the things that change in it. And that can be interesting to deal with when you're dealing with, you know, it could be maybe a few people in one day, and the next day it could be a few dozen, the next day it could be a few hundred. It varies from day to day. But yeah, there's a lot of, I need more arms. Yeah, but no, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot.
Good, good. That's awesome. Quick poll, like how many of you guys, like right now in the work that you're doing, tend to be like the sole point of contact for a lot of stuff? Like you know, do you have a good team? I see Sarah is raising her hand. We got Rachel. All right. Um, awesome. So that's fun. I'm glad that we have that type of expertise on the panel of dealing with that bottlenecks, because it definitely tends to happen. Um, so moving on to six, question number six. What do you guys think is the best way to ensure a lack of roadblocks? I know this is kind of a vague question, so you could take it where you want it to go. But what do you think the best way to keep that moving forward?
I know for me, forethought, planning. If you get your ducks lined up ahead of time, there's less likely to have stuff land in your way. Communicating well with the people that will be using your community, so they know what to expect, internally, externally, so within your company or community, and then your community members as well. Let them know if you're having changes coming, because if you don't, they will complain, and even if you tell them, they will complain because they want things to stay the way they are. But it's just making sure that you communicate well. One, two, you plan ahead and can anticipate some of the roadblocks and possibly head them off before they get started. And two, know that you'll still find some roadblocks and be prepared and have a plan for dealing with them, or a process for dealing with roadblocks.
I agree. I think that the communication thing is obviously key, but it's also it's a balancing act, and you need to be careful that that you do constantly elicit feedback and that you do really listen to it, but also that you're very clear and sort of set expectations, because ultimately your community isn't a democracy, and you're not going to do everything that everybody wants, and often I think that people approach feedback with we want to hear what you want and listening to you, and we're going to do what you ask, and you're not always. So I think it's important to carefully manage the way that communication happens, but definitely communication. Yeah, that's the key.
Awesome, fantastic stuff. This is going off a little bit. I've got some other sort of questions that are coming in here, sort of putting them together. I want to sort of do like a flip of the coin. So the first side is asking you guys, if you're starting, like say you're starting a community, okay? What do you think are some of the most important things to pay attention to make sure that you're not going to have some of those roadblocks or bottlenecks? Like say it's brand new, there's not really a lot of existing stuff there. What are some of the things you really want to focus on making sure are in place so that those things don't happen?
I guess you need to identify what your community needs and wants are. So talk to them, and then make sure that you're meeting their expectations from the get-go. I think you can't really build a community without setting a foundation of who you're servicing. Otherwise you're just building it for you, and it's going to be a small community. So I think, do your research and put the right goals in place, and getting back to the communication, definitely key. That two-way dialogue is ongoing, and be prepared to augment frequently.
I think the thing that as community managers we tend not to be particularly good at, well, community in general, is user experience. And there are just some very, very basic and key UX tests and processes and procedures that you can follow that make a huge difference. And doing that from the get-go, and planning with user patterns in mind, golden paths in mind, simple things like that. You don't need to be a UX professional to know what a difference user experience makes for any person coming to a new site or a new platform for the first time. And as we know, community doesn't do it very well. There aren't very many good community platforms out there where users just intuitively know what to do. But that can be carefully planned and managed from the beginning. Starting a community is the perfect opportunity to get that right, provided, as I said before, that you're prepared to pivot when it doesn't necessarily work, even if it's just something as simple as tweaking the name of a category.
Yeah, the thing with usability, especially when you're talking about a website, one of the biggest things I'll do, especially if I'm trying to help the design team, come up with a new thing to make the site a little bit better, a little more efficient, a little more usable, is I'll go at it and I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, well, let's say I want to pull a random example, let's say I want to put up a Minecraft video in the forum somewhere. All right, well, do I instinctively know where that is? Well, I mean, I know where it is because we helped put it there, but if I were to jump in and give it a glance over, say, 3 to 5 seconds, which, let's face it, most people are going to want, some kind of very quick response on their site, can I intuitively figure out where that should go, or where a server thread should go, or where I should discuss, this one aspect of the game or this one aspect of the community? And if I can't answer that question, to my own satisfaction, at that point, it's up to us to redesign things to make it more more involved, more intuitive, until we are happy with what we have, until we can look at it and say, okay, yeah, we figure that a reasonable person could look at this and intuit what they're trying to figure out in in a reasonable amount of time.
Good stuff. Now let's say the flip side, and I say good stuff, not awesome, because I'm actually getting blown up on Twitter right now because apparently I say awesome a lot, which tends to happen. But on the opposite side of that, if you are, say, going into a community that is already existing, okay, you're a brand new community manager, you're coming in there, what are some ways, what's the easiest way, let's say, for you to be able to notice where the roadblocks are? Like what you said, if you have a bunch of people that are going onto a form, that are trying to say, hey, I can't submit this, that's awesome. That is awesome. That problem's there. But how do you really find those problems if you don't necessarily have somebody that's filling out a, hey, this is broken form?
I know for me that for any new community manager going into an existing community, one of the first things you should do is say hello and ask if there are any problems. So that's one thing. And then I think you should spend the next 2 weeks not saying anything and just reading and watching and learning the community and getting to know their rituals, their rites of passage, so you understand where the community is at today. And during that time, solicit that feedback. If someone gives you feedback, acknowledge it, but don't contribute to the community just yet. So, someone says this sucks, you can say, thank you, we'll look into it. Can you expound on why it sucks or what you think we should do to make it better? But for the most part, don't contribute to any other part of the community for 2 weeks. And that gives you a chance to get to know the community, get to know your champions, and to get to know the flow and the way that things work. And then after that 2 week mark, you can go in and say, all right, this is what you guys have said are the issues. How can we address them? Or this is the issues, and we've already got some solutions planned for it, and get started that way. But certainly listening to the community. You just have to be very careful that you're not listening to a vocal minority. When you have to think of the community as a whole, and I think as community managers we sometimes get stuck in that bubble listening to the people that talk the most, and we forget about the people that never say a word. And changing the way that something works may make things easier for the people that post a lot, but for the people that don't ever post, it may make it difficult for them. So you have to look at a broader picture. I think that's really probably that's how I would approach it anyway.
And I think another.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think a very, very simple thing that we often overlook is just making the path to feedback or to communicate with somebody that can help really, really easy and really, really obvious. The last thing that somebody that gets lost in a store wants is to not be able to find the help desk. So yeah, just a path to simple and easy feedback, whether it's an email address, PM me for help, just somewhere that people don't have to work to find when they're feeling they're most stuck or they're most distressed. It seems so simple, but so many people don't do it.
It never ceases to amaze me how much people who don't say a word still get involved. You know, we look at analytics and see the amount of traffic we get in a given section or in a given time of year or time of month or whatever the case may be, and you know, the numbers speak for themselves. You know, you can see people will, you know, to name an example, we have a modding section for the game that unquestionably gets the most traffic of the entire site. But even though not a lot of people necessarily post there, we are getting a very clear message of people are interested in this thing. And you know, to expand a little bit on what David was saying with the vocal minority, it sometimes, especially in video games, I cannot tell you how hard it can be to ignore the vocal minority when they don't actually represent the majority sometimes. But there are rare occasions when they do, but it's, I think, far less often the case than, you know, than they would like to think. Then, of course, the challenge becomes not alienating this vocal minority for the sake of, you know, brevity or you know, whatever the case may be, and learning to handle the vocal minority becomes its own unique challenge, you know, almost separate of, you know, the needs of the many, as it were. But it's tricky, I think, handling the vocal minority sometimes. They can be very passionate about what they believe in sometimes.
I think that's the difference between fan-based communities and professional-based communities. Fan-based communities have generally built-in a level of anonymity. I hate that word. I hate saying that word because I'm not good at it. So with that, you know, that having that anonymous nature, they can often get away with saying stuff that is, you know, wildly offensive and that kind of thing. Whereas in a professional community, it's more likely to be, you know, a more professional conversation when they have issues. They can still be a vocal majority, but it won't be so volatile and stuff like that. But just in that case.
Yeah, it's one thing to be passionate. It's quite another to be toxic, and figuring out that threshold is variable.
Yeah, but see, I still believe that your toxic fans are still passionate people. They just communicate poorly.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Yeah, they clearly believe a great deal in it if they're investing all this time and saying what they're saying. It's just translating it is the fun part.
Yeah, but I think that's what I'm saying. It takes effort for them to be that nasty about things, and you know, if they're going to take the time and effort to do that, they really believe in what they're saying, and they may be wrong, but they certainly have some strong passion about what they're saying.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think that if you've created a strong and a healthy culture, then you have a buffer between that bad feeling or that bad attitude or that toxicity and the rest of the community and yourself. You know, a strong and healthy community fights back and takes care of its own. And there's something to be said for dissent in a community as well. You know, it really can help to bring a community together. I don't know how much you guys have read of Rich Millington's work, but he actually you know, purports using dissent in the community as a way to kind of strengthen bonds and get people to pull together. And well, I think you've got to be pretty careful about how you implement that. If it happens on its own, I don't necessarily think that it needs to be considered a negative all of the time, provided you manage it carefully.
Sweet. Good stuff. Now I'm trying to say things that are not awesome. Epic answers, folks. Or as Kristen said, I can't respond with, well, that was a crap answer. Moving on.
That sucked.
That sucked. Okay. And I do want to say I don't think my Friday is complete without having David mention the point that he just said. So every single week, you know, your most loud community members just they're passionate. They just don't know how to say it right. So. I wanted to bring in a couple of questions here, actually. Got Chris McEwen. Let's see here. Share this screen. Chris, what's up, Chris? Member of the Social Beards. Also works in yo-yos, so you know he's sweet. He said that he has a lot of members from one community that have moved from an owned forum to a community-driven Facebook group. And he asked the question, how would you recommend to drive them back? And that's definitely a roadblock. It's more of just, they exited your road and went onto their own. So what do you guys think about that? Is there a good way as a community manager to sort of drive them back so that you can keep them within the flow of your community?
So I was going to say, so just so I understand, they were on say a forum, and they moved to Facebook, and now they're trying to get them back to the forum. Is that?
I think that's kind of the way that was set up.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's an official forum, and the community started a Facebook group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in that, see, I believe that Facebook is not a community platform because I feel like it's social media. It's for connecting on I don't know. I'm not going to go on that road right now. But that being said, you should use the group to drive traffic back. As I think you should with all social media. I think you should own your platform. That way you own your data and they can't control it for you. So do things to incentivize them to come back to the community. So post your good content in the community, go to Facebook, give a short snippet and a link back to the community. And always be driving traffic home, so to speak. It's okay to share content there. Just don't share all of it. Make them have that extra step of going to get it. Sure, someone may come in and post the whole content right after you, but the first few people are going to see that top one and drive you. Like I said, the whole goal there is to bring them home, bring them in house, get them into your place. So, call your friends and say, hey, I'm having a party, come on over. That's what I'm talking about.
I think
Another
one
thing you want to consider also. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I think another thing. Oh no, it's all right. Another big consideration is if they're going from the official site or the established site to another community that they're creating on their own. A big thing to think about is why. Something's pushing them away, whether they feel they're restricted on the main site or they feel their concerns aren't being addressed. Censorship is the one I hear a lot, but that's probably often true half as often as they claim. But yeah, there's some underlying factor beyond just content, I think, that pushes people away, and identifying that and eliminating it is absolutely key there.
Then I would even go the next step further, and who had the influence to take this large percentage of people to a Facebook group away from the forum?
Yeah, that
and hopefully you can talk to them and woo them back to the light and have them become a powerful advocate. Because clearly something's working and it wasn't working on your forum. So kind of, befriend the ringleader and make them work for you.
Awesome. Good
Before
stuff.
we leave that topic, I was thinking, another thing you could do is embrace the Facebook community and, reach out to whoever created it if you didn't create it and just say, look, let's work together on this. I'll share some good content with you. You help me drive people back. And, in the past, I've worked at a company where there was lots of small communities around this one particular game, for example, and it came up on the game's anniversary. And rather than having these sites kind of fight for competition, we released exclusive content to all of them and said, this is, the idea here is to cross-link. You can have this piece, but make sure you let everybody know that these other two sites have the other pieces. And together that made a cohesive kind of experience for the anniversary of the game. And nobody got something different from anybody else. They all had something exclusive. They were all tied together, and the traffic moved from site to site because they encouraged it. And so instead of having 2 separate communities or 3 separate communities for that day, all of the communities came together and were one. And that may be an option too, to reach out to the owner and say, look, let's work together. I'll help you, you help me, and we'll both grow this community together.
Awesome. Good stuff. I'm not even gonna, that's bodacious. That was a bodacious answer. I said that it's my Okay. What channels do you use to refer a community member to other team members? What do you guys think? Like when it comes within it, do you try to keep it in the same channel? Do you find that email really works well? I know it probably depends, but what do you guys really think works best for referring when you do need to refer to another person.
Do you mean referring a community member to another person, or do you mean referring to another person personally for help?
Both and. Either one. Go ahead, just pick.
I'm finding I freelance. I work for a number of companies, and I find that the companies in which we have some kind of Slack or HipChat, some kind of IM, is just becoming more and more important these days, especially when I'm in New Zealand, and so everybody else I work with is in a different time zone in a different part of the world. And while email is great, and email will always be great, you don't always get the quick response. And I think that people's workflows these days, when you sit down to do some work, you check all your notifications first, and you tend to do your chatting before you clear your email inbox. So personally for me, I find it difficult in companies that don't have that kind of instant communication. So that's just a personal thing. That's not necessarily referring to somebody else.
Yeah, we use something along the same lines because we kind of rely a lot on our actual customer success department for a lot of questions we have. And we actually tend to have quite a few community members who are a lot more tech savvy than our community managers. So sometimes they'll ask us questions or ask, I don't know, just way too technical questions. So what we do is we'll throw it in HipChat. So we'll either put it in the room where we think someone can answer it, or we know within the company who is the best person to answer that already. Same within our GetSat forums, we tend to keep things public and keep it in there if we can. But email is always pretty good if it tends to be negative, to be able to bring them back on. Or if you think that it's going to be a really long conversation, because there's nothing worse than just like filling up your own feed with just back and forth to this one person all the time.
I take an omni-channel approach. I definitely respond on the initial platform the conversation started. Email, if all parties have email on file. And then publicly somewhere where we're super active as a community, so other people know if we're highlighting a specific community member who's really knowledgeable in a certain aspect, you kind of give them a shout out, but then obviously connect the two people together, but then other people are aware too, to kind of amplify and make sure everyone's on the same page. And then you follow circle back, because again, who knows what people's workflows are, so make sure it's resolved in a timely manner.
Awesome. Dang it. I can't even help myself. Gnarly. That was gnarly, guys.
No, Dom, that was a compelling answer, Rachel. Thank you.
Rachel, thank you so much for that.
From now on, Rachel will talk for Dom.
At least they're all nice words that you're using and not mean words.
It's true.
You're like,
so I think we should set up a fund somewhere, and every time Dom says awesome, he should contribute $1 to some charity.
True, it's true. And if I'm ever texting with you and I say cool, I've been told that's the most annoying thing in the world. So
and the weirdest one for you though, the weirdest one is still Jizo Pete's.
Jizo Pete's, yes. Jizo Pete's, that's another one. It's just below awesome, right above cool. So if you guys want to play a Dom drinking game, that'll be fun. You won't get much done on the end of your Fridays, but who does anyway? Anyway, I wanted to bring in another question, an awesome question from Natalie. Thanks, Natalie. What do you do if the technology is not working? For instance, your roadblock is people are unable to join. How do you really handle that one?
Yell at IT.
I also lead our user experience, so I just file a ticket for my team.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many of us actually handle the technical aspects of that stuff, honestly.
Yeah, I guess I would need more context. Is it the tool, the platform is somehow broken, or just, you're somehow limiting your community members? Yeah.
Well, if you want to follow up with that, feel free to follow up with any of our panelists and get. You can follow up directly with Rachel. So that's how I'm handling this roadblock of us not being able to answer that question. I'm telling you to talk to somebody else. Okay. Question number 8, which is a groovy question. which tools do you guys find help with a good stream of communication? I know we started to get into that with things like Slack and other options. What tools do you guys personally use, if you want to get a little bit more in depth on that?
I use Slack and also just walk over to people's desks.
Yes, walking. I forgot about that.
Sneakernet.
Physical
I don't
movement separated.
I'm going to say I'm a huge fan of OneNote and their endless pages. I have notebooks within OneNote that just have everything that I could possibly need on a community. I've got a notebook for power users. I've got a notebook for problem users. I've got just notes on everything, and it just helps me keep track of anything. And I'm not saying use OneNote, but there are a lot of products out there that will allow you to quickly take notes and organize and categorize. And I think something like that, everybody should have it. It should be digital. You should be able to get to it from anywhere. That way, if something happens when you're not in front of your desk, you should be able to at least look into it and see what you've got on whatever it is you're looking up.
Yeah, I use Google Docs for a lot of note-taking to collaborate with colleagues, spreadsheets of good advocates and the others. And then Hootsuite, we use that for collaborating with our global community managers. A lot of assigning of tweets, and that really kind of adds process to our community workflow.
One I've had a lot of luck with is Trello, of all things, which surprised me. Mainly for us, that's used by the volunteer moderators to manage, ban lists when that's necessary, rule changes across the board so everybody's on the same page, and the rule enforcement is, universal and consistent. But it's also really handy when, like for me in content, if one of them happens to stumble across a thread while I'm moderating that seems really interesting, they'll put it in there, and I can look at it and see if it's something that needs to be presented to the community. But yeah, Trello is amazing. It really is. I like it a lot for managing groups.
And I think so there's the aspect of communication with teams or companies, and obviously I don't have the walking to the desk option with anyone I work with. But the other aspect of communication, of course, is communicating with your moderators. And so I think that, I've found personally that it's really key in any community that I manage to have staff check-ins. So whether that's daily or weekly or monthly, depending on the tier of staff and how many staff that you've got. So I make that mandatory, partly so that I know that people are there doing jobs if you're not in the same time zone, partly so that people feel like they're constantly being encouraged to give feedback if they need to, and partly just to keep the sense of community going within the staff as well, because that's that's kind of a meta sense of community within your wider community that is as important, if not more important, to keep healthy.
Tubular, guys. That was tubular.
It goes back a decade every time.
There it is. That was spot on, gang. Jeez, oh Pete's, that was awesome. I said awesome again. I can't help it. It's a go-to. All right. The last question that I have, and we could fire through this really quick, is actually from, I know Sherry's giving me an eye, like, dude, you have 2 minutes left. Why are you doing asking another question? But I'm going to do it. And it was from Kristen. So really quick.
That was fully in reference to Jeez, oh Pete's.
Oh, Jeez, oh Pete's? Okay, fair enough. So really quick, where do you guys go for, I was going to pull it up, but I'm just going to read it. Where do you guys go for counsel when you hit a roadblock? Like something that you're not really sure of, where do you guys, what resources do you go to try to help get through that?
Well, I heard about this hangout on Fridays where other people talk about community management, and I've found that I often learn something when listening to those. The host, though, he says awesome way too much, but, it's a good thing to catch every now and then.
I was actually going to say something similar. I turned to peers. Obviously, the folks here on Community Manager Hangout, but again, just other folks that I've connected with on the social streams. It's an amazing support community, and they've been very helpful.
I personally, CMX Hub is awesome on Facebook, very, very helpful. Lots of Facebook groups. I belong to an Australian New Zealand Community Managers one, which is helpful. I think I'm in the uniquely awesome position, sorry, Dan, I took it, of working with a company that is just community professionals, so I get a lot of support there. But yeah, peers definitely, even just something as simple as Twitter, reaching out if something's urgent, surrounding yourself by good people and having a really strong network.
I think that's the one benefit of working as a community manager is all the other community managers want to help you be a better community manager because they know the value of community.
I will say, as an industry, community managers tend to be like that no matter who they are. If you ask them for help or ask them to bounce an idea, all of them. I've never had somebody say, "Really, I just don't have time." They will generally make time because you're right. They want to help you succeed because communities that succeed make us all look better.
Not just that, but I think CMs have an almost unique challenge or set of challenges in front of them as far as as a career goes, and I can't think of anybody in any profession. There are some that come close, but I can't think of anybody who really genuinely understands, the specific challenges a CM faces other than other CMs. I've heard a lot of parallel attempts to explain other jobs in relation to them, but it's just not the same.
So would you say that we are awesome at having each other's backs? Is that what you would say?
In essence, yeah.
Okay, good. That's sweet. Yeah, so this has been great, guys. Thank you so much for all of this. I know that I speak for the whole panel when it says if you do have any other questions about this. I know we only have a certain amount of time to get to all of this. I know that these people are hungry to engage more with you, so make sure to get with them. Being as awesome as being on a panel at 8 o'clock a.m. On Saturday, so we have somebody from the future that's here, as well as across a couple of different time zones. So thank you, everybody. Sherry, what do we have up next week?
I totally almost just hit stop broadcast instead of unmute.
What do we have next week? Blank. Nothing.
Nothing. Go home.
That's the end of it.
Why Bruce should never miss a Friday. Anyway, next week we're talking about the People's Champion Award, so advocating for your computer community in time.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Everybody, bring your best rock impressions next week for the People's Champion, and we will see you then.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us.